Okay, so let's start with the discussion in that case. The discussion that I will try to follow today is under the worksheets, which is at the end of your modules on Canvas. It's called Worksheet One. It looks like something like this. I'm going to ask you some questions about the lectures that you've covered and some of the readings that you have done. So the first question that I want to start discussing with is Netflix's strategic positioning. I'm aware, or I'm pretty sure everyone has had Netflix before, or has some friends that use Netflix as a streaming service or currently have Netflix. What do you think is Netflix's strategic positioning? We can also start with the second question, which is a little easier to answer. Can you make a SWOT analysis for Netflix? So basically, can you guys think of any strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, or threats that Netflix is experiencing / facing today?
Strengths, convenience, being able to watch movies from home.
Yeah.
Cheaper than cable.
Yes.
I'd say a weakness would be that there's a lot more streaming apps now, so they have a lot more competition to compete, with certain shows that they're able to have on their platform being removed, which could be a threat too.
Yeah, I would actually say that's a threat, just like the number of providers. That wouldn't have been a problem for Netflix maybe 5 years ago, but today there is Disney Plus, there is HBO's own streaming service, and a bunch of others that are high in competition with Netflix. You're absolutely right.
I think a threat can be like sharing accounts.
Mm-hmm. So Karen says people sharing accounts and not pay Netflix for the individual that they are subscribing is another threat, because people are not paying for what they're watching. They're sharing accounts.
I would say an opportunity for them, having the platform, they're able to create original series. So that is something that they can use, to get funding and sponsors.
Yeah, one of the opportunities is that they're creating some original content, and it's good for them, because actually what happened is that in the past 2 years, a lot of the streaming services started pulling off their content from Netflix, right? A lot of things disappeared from Netflix and started appearing in the other competitor channels, because it was basically owned by them in terms of content. So an opportunity right now for Netflix is what they're kind of doing is creating original content for Netflix, like the Netflix series or the docu-series that they're coming up with. Yeah, I would agree. That's a good point too.
I would say, sorry, another strength is there's like a large variety of options of what to watch, and you don't have to deal with commercials, so there's no interruptions either.
Yeah, Leah is pointing out a really good thing, because like Hulu or other competitors have ads in them, even though sometimes when you're paying for Hulu, in the case of Hulu, for example. So Netflix's advantage, which is the strength of Netflix, is that it does not put ads into the shows. So it's continuous experience for its customers. Good point, Leah.
Wouldn't because Netflix actually charges extra to have extra users on their platform.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't that also be a strength as opposed to other programs that kick you out if two of you are on the same platform?
Yeah.
So sort of like a loyalty to their customers, not to kick you off if someone else is using it.
Yeah.
If you pay that extra $1 or whatever it is.
Yeah. I would put it this way. Netflix has different pricing strategies for different users. So if you're a family watching Netflix, then you can pay a little bit extra and have as many users on there as you want. If you are a couple I'm actually not very familiar with their pricing options, but basically having options for different types of users is a great thing. So one other strength is basically not creating inconvenience for users who want to log on from 3 devices or more, and allowing that to happen is another strength.
I would also say a threat could be bundle packages that some companies offer. Like if you have Sprint, you can get Spotify and Hulu for free.
Yeah.
And then I know if you get AT&T, you can get HBO Max for a certain cheaper price.
Mm-hmm. Another threat, as Zaira said, is the bundling of other companies, basically who share corporate power together or who share content. I think AT&T owns HBO or something like that. So basically they bundle, friend companies bundle their products and try to push their product onto the consumer. Especially their competitors who are cooperating with internet providers or other service providers who are already really big in the country, who have a lot of customers, is creating some trouble for Netflix because they don't have a partner that is as strong. So that's a really good point. Another threat is bundles by bigger and stronger corporations. What else?
I could say a weakness too is since I've had my account, I think the Netflix price has changed maybe 3 or 4 times. And a couple of times it has changed. It only went up a few dollars, but it did make me want to switch over to something else that was cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Zaira is saying that the price has been increasing in the past couple of years, and that pushes consumers a little bit because they don't necessarily always have more content. Sometimes they have less content, but they're still increasing prices to be able to compete with the other competitors that pop up in the market. I think currently they are a little bit more ahead in the game with the docuseries or the different series that they're pushing in terms of content. But about 6 months ago, they had a hard time pulling a lot of content out of the site, but still charging consumers more or sometimes equal as their competitors were. And their prices are continuously increasing, which is not great because consumers don't want to pay that much, especially nowadays where we kind of have to subscribe to 2 or more of these streaming services, and it's basically $25 to $50 out of our pockets every month for content. So it is a continuing pain, and it's a weakness of the service that the prices are high and they are starting to hurt the consumers. And it's a pain of the industry because the prices in total hurt the consumers a little bit more. And Netflix has to keep that in mind at this point because they're not alone. It's been a long time where Netflix was more commonly the only streaming service that people were subscribed to. Do you guys remember the times where actually you had to get CDs, like the physical CD copies from Netflix? Do you remember what Netflix used to be?
Red box, I think.
Yeah. Do you remember those times? Can you tell us a little bit more about those times?
Yeah, it was basically you go to this, they had a kiosk at almost every corner of the street, and then you would go there, get your movies, and then you could pay, like, if you want to rent it for 24 hours or 7 days. And if you didn't bring it back, they started charging you every day that you didn't bring it back. I think it was like $1 a day.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
basically just go there and exchange it for another movie or just return your CDs in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember you could also, if you were not living anywhere close to the kiosks, you could also
mail it in, I believe.
Yep.
You could get them to your address, and then you could return them with the label that they sent to you. So yeah, they actually changed a lot from what they used to be. Their whole business model was on convenient movie rentals, right?
Yeah.
Rentals. And with the boom of digital content, ease of streaming from home, and ease of basically being able to store all of these movies, which are really large in storage space, the ease of being able to store them on the internet and people being able to stream them whenever they want to, the whole business changed from movie rentals, hard copy rentals, to streaming services. And I forgot who mentioned it, but initially one of the first comments was that convenience from home, convenient entertainment from home is one of the strengths of Netflix. So just keeping this in mind, I wanted to tell you that you actually kind of touched upon Netflix's strategic positioning. Wouldn't you agree that Netflix is trying to provide easy entertainment, convenient entertainment from the comfort of your home?
Definitely. If you think about their biggest competitor, Blockbuster, back in the day, what they did was perfect. They just did a good enough job to get people to stop going to Blockbuster and drove out their main competition back in the day, and then moved on to online. I remember a time Netflix was the only streaming service there was. You had every show on there, and like it was just amazing. Like, yeah, they were basically like positioned perfectly at that time.
Yeah.
Now there's so much saturation where we're getting to a point where we're just going to go back to TV someday. Just because like you have to have 4 or 5 different subscriptions to get everything you want, which kind of sucks, but
yeah, Ali is completely right. So Netflix was doing everything so great to fit that positioning of creating convenient entertainment for the consumers from the comfort of their homes. He just mentioned also that they were, there was a time they were doing this so successfully while competing with a very successful brand, Blockbuster. I also remember that there was a time they switched into online streaming, but not everything was available online. So they would still provide you the streaming of whatever it was available, but you could still rent the CDs for the content that was not available. Maybe you paid like $1 for the CD rental or whatever. They tried out another business model very, very shortly, because I think the switch to everything online happened quick enough. But that has been their motto the whole time. They have just tried to create convenient entertainment for its consumers. And I totally agree that with Ali that they have to switch their business model or their positioning. They have to make a pivot soon enough before everyone goes back to watching TV again, because they are facing very high competition from very strong companies that are pulling their content out of Netflix, which is putting Netflix in a weak position, and also creating their own streaming services that is asking for money from the same consumers that have Netflix, and basically creating a pain for the wallets of these consumers after all, because the number of players in the industry is becoming saturated, beyond saturated. So do you guys think how Netflix is going to, do you have an idea about how Netflix should or is going to pivot, or
Well, they're already kind of pivoting by sort of what Sony's doing by making Sony exclusive, or the game companies exclusively, like Microsoft and Sony compete that way. They've already started making Netflix originals and dumping most of their money into making movies that are better than their competitors, which is sort of their pivot plan, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. You got it perfectly right. So they are trying to compete with having really high quality Netflix originals. You may have heard and read in the news that they are investing a lot of money into Netflix originals right now. Is this going to save them? I mean, we'll wait and see, I guess. But yeah, Kestria, you're right.
I mean, yeah, they are hiring like some top-notch directors to do their movies for them. There was this new movie, like Zombie Army, had like Batista. Like it just came out over the weekend, and I saw it was directed by Zack Snyder and his wife. I'm like, what? For a Netflix original? Like, it was basically it was a movie I would have watched in, you know, a movie theater, which was awesome. So yeah, the way they're going with their Netflix original series is awesome.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're really, really good original things coming out, either series. Their docu-series are really good too. I mean, everyone was talking about them throughout the whole like COVID period. There was the Epstein case that they made a documentary about. Now there's a documentary about the museum robbery from the Stuart Gardner Museum, which is really good. I do suggest that you watch it. It's very captivating. Yeah, there is really, really good content in it right now. So they're trying to make it worth the consumer's money. And hopefully it will work out for them, because I like Netflix. I like having to just pay $10 per month and having unlimited content.
The way they're also doing it is contract based. If you've noticed, they have a lot of Marvel characters in their Netflix, and they're trying to lock them into multiple movies at the same time to buy them. Because obviously, if you're locked in with a contract, you're not going to go to HBO and sign another contract because it's against your contract. So they're buying time, I guess, to figure out another pivot plan with these actors.
Yeah, they're trying to lock actors or sometimes directors into Netflix to create content with them so that they can buy time and these people don't produce with the competitors. It's a tough game right now. It's a really tough game. Online streaming industry has been booming, but with the COVID, it also has become a very profitable area, because the like the in-person streaming or in-person movies basically stopped happening, and all the money went into online streaming.
Also,
I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I think another strength of theirs is that they've built a culture for themselves, unlike any other subscription-based platform. Like there's things like Netflix and Chill that people just, it's like in their language on a day-to-day basis. And then like I've been seeing like merchandise for their Netflix original series movies, like in stores like H&M and places like that, where they're creating such a huge culture around their platform, which is very strong for them.
Yeah, I totally agree, Ryan. So there's a lot of products who were first entrants and into the game or the industry, and they have made a name for the product in the industry for them, such as like duct tape. Duct tape is actually a brand name for tape, but everyone calls any duct tape right now. Things like Kleenex, or I mean, you can probably think of like 100 other brand names that have become product names, ultimately Band-Aid. And Netflix has been so strong and has gained so many consumers in its first few years even, that Netflix and Chill had become a thing. It's just basically formed this culture among consumers that watch Netflix and talk about Netflix, stay at home and watch Netflix. So it's been doing really good. And I like, yeah, that's definitely a strength for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say during their startup, they initially actually had games that you can rent from Redbox, but I don't think they had the revenue to keep up with that. They could always try going back to that now that they're a bigger company and try and make Netflix original games and work with the gaming industry to try and get extra revenue that way.
Yeah.
Sort of what Amazon is doing right now. They've already entered the gaming industry, which has become huge with Twitch streamers making millions and everything like that. They can start signing those guys to their, and they could possibly just make another streaming with their Netflix original games for a platform, I guess.
Is there a game platform on Amazon? I'm not aware of it. Is there a game?
No, Microsoft tried it and then it went downhill from there with Microsoft. But Amazon, they're making games, but it's not a streaming platform. They're just working with gaming industries to make Amazon like online games.
Oh, interesting. I have not heard of that.
So basically what it is, I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off. So like there's a gaming platform called Twitch, which is where you can go and stream your gaming. It used to only be called Twitch, and you can sub to people, give them money because you want to support them. In recent years, Amazon partnered up with Twitch, and now you can use your Amazon Prime to use as a sub. So they kind of like pushed into that market, and now Amazon is becoming synonymous with gaming. So that's kind of what Netflix should have tried to do, but it's too late. I guess it's a little too late.
Yeah, that's like along the lines I was going, but like there's nothing like Twitch, like Amazon is a subsidiary of, like they're a partner of Twitch, but it's not called Amazon Twitch. It's just called Twitch. They kind of let them have that platform by also being an investor in a way. And Microsoft tried to do the same thing, and they stole one of the biggest streamers from Twitch, but it went downhill because it never got any traction. Because Microsoft, I don't know, I guess their business model just fell through. And Netflix might try to do something like that, partnering up. Twitch already has a partner, but they could try maybe YouTube streaming, and then, or maybe make their own platform in the way that Microsoft tried, but hopefully it doesn't go downhill for them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Netflix professionals and marketing managers have considered this option. I'm not sure if they don't think it's in line with the product fit or the culture that they're trying to appeal to. Maybe Twitch is just going for maybe younger people, and Netflix wants to be known for video, or maybe they want to save that streaming part first, and then they will explore some opportunity to go into gaming. I'm not sure what the decisions were around that. But I also think that for Amazon to do anything and everything, it's a little easier because Amazon positions themselves as more like a shopping mall. So you go into Amazon and get anything and everything. So it's an advantage, but they also have to be really good in everything that they do for people to keep coming back. So it's a challenge because they need a lot of money to sustain everything that they're doing, for which they somehow find a way to do, which is good and phenomenal and out of understanding. But maybe Netflix just doesn't have enough money to explore both sides, so they want to invest as much money as they want for the online content business that they are actually known for. And maybe they also find it not so much in line with their strategic positioning, because their customer target is a little different than who Amazon targets, which is everybody. So I'm not very sure, but it could be something that they can explore, especially if it fits their strategic positioning of easy entertainment from home. Thank you for sharing that.
One more, like, I don't know if I'm mistaken, but I don't think Amazon actually has different language. Like Netflix has Netflix Korea that also airs in the US. I don't think Amazon has anything like that in a different like genre, I guess, if that makes sense, with Korean documentaries and TV shows.
Well, Amazon,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. Amazon has like different versions of itself in different countries. So like like a couple of years ago, I was in the UAE and they had like Amazon AE, like UAE, so they have like, and then they have completely different merchandise and things that they sell there based off of the market over there. It's really interesting. So they have that, I'm sure, in many different countries.
Okay, I didn't know, because like I don't know, can you access that from US, or do you have
No,
to
I
be
don't.
there?
No, you have to be there. And then the shipping services, the shipping like way that they do the shipping is completely different, because it's like they have to talk to their people to do the shipping. Like whereas here, they hire people to like drive around in time trucks and stuff like that. Over there, it's going to be a different system.
Okay, yeah, that's basically the only difference. Netflix allows you to watch everything that they make global from anywhere, I guess.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Netflix makes content in Turkey, specifically in Turkey, that is watched highly by Arabic countries and also Latin Americans. Netflix makes Latin American originals as well. I didn't know they're Korean originals, but apparently they have Korean originals too. Netflix has been very early in the international streaming area. And for example, in Turkey right now, there is a couple other local streaming services, but they're also very popular, but they're as popular as Netflix, as Netflix has entered early on and created original content for the culture specifically. And everyone in the world knows Netflix right now, which is really hard to do. Amazon, I'm not talking about Amazon Video or Amazon Prime Video. I'm talking about Amazon in terms of the shopping service, has entered markets actually after Netflix entered markets for streaming services. And they had a different strategy for every market entry. For example, in Turkey, they did buy an existing shopping service, which is gittigidiyor.com. So they just bought that, and then they kind of, I'm not sure, I think they're still trying to convert it into a, actually, you know what? I made it up. eBay bought gittigidiyor.com. Amazon is trying to enter as its own entity, but it's not popular because there's already, like, e-commerce was really easy to do for the locals, because you just basically set the website and then you ask sellers to come in, and then you ask buyers to come in. And as a local, it's easier for getting local sellers and local buyers. Amazon.com is not very popular in Turkey yet. It may be a little bit more popular in the UAE. They also picked and chose some markets that they're going to go stronger, such as England. They are doing a good job in England. But some of them they basically let go because they were not going to be very good in all of them. They are very, very good, as Regan also mentioned here, because they saw the pain points of customers and solved them very quickly, such as they bought a whole shipping and handling truck services. They provide everything and anything, and they can handle everything on their own. They still use USPS sometimes, but they are slowly but surely taking over all of the deliveries of their products, right? So here they're a little bit more advantageous because they are locals here and they can handle the problems by buying everything up or investing in those problem creating areas for their business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah, both companies are competing very differently internationally, and they're all like case studies on their own in terms of each market that they enter, which, I mean, probably Harvard cases include all of them. People sometimes write these cases in terms of what the company does in a market entry strategy in a foreign market. But Netflix has overall done much better in its new market entries and increasing awareness among the consumers of the local markets. Any other last minute comments on Netflix? I'm just going to move on to strategic positioning if there's any after the comments or right now. Okay, so let's talk about strategic positioning. I'm going to slowly go into this reading I assigned, which is not a very easy reading. It's probably one of the hardest readings that I've assigned for this class. It's What is Strategy by Michael Porter. I have assigned this reading. It's, of course, under your Canvas modules, I think week 1 modules. It's because this article summarizes what strategy is today very well. As you've already probably watched my lectures, marketing strategy, well, marketing used to not exist because in the early times, like 1920s to 1930s, products were sold in bulk. They did not have brands on them. When you went to a mom and pop shop to buy cocoa, there was no brand on it. If you go to the Henry Ford, there are actually good representations of the shops of the time in Greenfield Village. I am mesmerized by them, so I check them out all the time. Whenever I go there in the Henry Ford, you can see photos of like kitchens from different periods. You can see that the 1930s kitchens did not have any branded cans or products or dish soap in it. It just was, you know, generic bought by bulk items. So however, with the rise of investors such as Rockefeller or Carnegie Mellon, what happened is that basically holdings or these one-man companies, monopolies, have started emerging. And these companies were mostly selling petrol or lumber or raw materials with some quality, sustainable quality that they were preferred over others. And they became richer and richer. And with the money, they started investing in different businesses. Initially, when firms formed, like the Rockefeller Foundation, what happened is that they had a firm, they started producing products, but they didn't care about competition because there was no competition yet, such as, let's think of one of the earliest brands that you can think of. What are some brands that are very, very old? I think maybe Heinz Ketchup is a very old brand. So when Heinz Ketchup came out, there was no other ketchup brand out there. So it was just Heinz Ketchup that's like sold to mom and pop shops, and you bought that. But that was the first time that consumers were seeing anything of anything that you may call a brand. So what a brand was promising in a market where there's a lot of information asymmetry, which basically is someone is selling you the product, you don't know what is in it. So you go and buy cocoa one time, the cocoa is great. The next time you buy cocoa, maybe it was coming from Peru, but now it's coming from Colombia and it's not the same quality, and you just buy a different cocoa, but you never know where the origin of the product is or who sold it. There's no brand on it. So that changed with the introduction of brands because the brands were promising sustained quality. Like whenever you buy Heinz Ketchup, you're gonna open the can and it will be the same thing. Firms around this time were very, very focused on their prices, pushing the products to the consumers. They didn't really care about competition. If they did, it was basically competing with the competition with price. And after that, slowly marketing, competing with the competition with creating perceptions in consumers' minds started happening. And then later, I mean, fast forward to today, now there's so many brands and all of them want to create an image in our minds by us associating them with one word or one concept, such as quality or color or community or fun. And with the number of brands out there now, brands have to differentiate from others in some way or another, or they will just be just another brand that's out there that you will never remember. So this article is about this. This article is about how brands can and should differentiate. So I want to ask you, like, Porter talks about strategic positioning in this paper. What is it? Like, what does he say that counts as strategic positioning? Or what does he say that you should not focus all your energy into? If you haven't read this paper, I suggest that you read it. It's a like very, very good paper. It's one of the things that you must know. There's another paper by Porter, 5 Forces of Strategy. These papers will probably like come across your way in the workplace. Everyone talks about them, and they're just kind of like the marketing strategy jargon. And I do suggest that you have that in your vocabulary when you're talking to people, when you're interviewing with people. Michael Porter is a very successful academic from Harvard Business School. But in my PhD, we also read this paper along with a couple other Porter papers that were very important. And I think this is just some good knowledge to have under your belt in terms of becoming a marketing professional. I mean, you may not understand all of it, but still like skim read the parts and try to like find the answers of these questions and highlight them and maybe like memorize those parts or learn those parts, because they do feed into an important mindset about marketing, which we'll discuss right now. Castriot, are you going to say something?
Yeah, sorry, my mic is based off my voice. What was I going to say? Didn't he say something about if your strategic positioning isn't strong enough and you fail, somebody else can just copy it and your competitive advantage is temporary?
Yeah, you're so right. Yes. And to like extend that point, basically he says a lot of firms are trying to make products at a very low cost, and they want to compete in terms of their pricing, which is basically price your product a little bit lower than your competition. And then another firm comes up and they produce it even lower. They like outsource it to another country, or they just lower the quality a little bit, and then they fight with price, which is called price wars. However, Porter says you can just, everybody can fight with prices. Everybody can try to lower your cost. Even if you lower your cost and go outsource your product to a third world country, your competitor the next day, if not the next day, the next week, can start sourcing from the people that you are sourcing. So you should not engage in price wars, but what you should do instead is to create a value for your consumer. And that creating a value and differentiating from your competitors is what he calls strategic positioning. So thank you for that comment, Castriot.
One thing I do remember from the reading, I'm sorry if I do get this wrong, they were talking about how strategic positioning is based off the customer's needs, accessibility, or the variety of the products, as well as making trade-offs to meet that strategic position. They talked about this airline where they made cuts in a certain way and it actually grounded the entire airline, literally losing hundreds of millions of dollars because their strategic position, they were in the right place, but the mindset wasn't there. They made compromises where they shouldn't have been making compromises, basically, and ignoring the customer needs, which is why they ultimately got grounded and lost all that money.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So when you are coming up with your differentiation strategy, we like talked about SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses. You as the company have to do that, because if you try to differentiate with a weakness that you have, you're gonna utterly fail. So you have to write down your weaknesses, your strengths, your opportunities, your threats as a company. Like, are you a company that can efficiently source low cost products, or are you a company that is known by its quality? So basically what we've done with Netflix, you have to do for your own company, and then also do it for the other companies that are in the industry, and then pick and choose your differentiation strategy. It has to be in line with what else you are doing in your firm. So Porter gives Southwest Airlines as an example of an airline that is successfully doing its strategic positioning as the convenient low-cost airline, because he says they are not allowing consumers to have baggage on board. They're making everything very efficiently in terms of check-in, get into the plane. I think it's every 10 minutes they like make the plane leave off of an airport. They're trying to reduce all the costs that are related to delays. They are also hiring not so expensive flight attendants or pilots. They have very standard airplanes. It's all one model. So it's very easy to like switch them, exchange them in case it's necessary. They only buy that one model. So they're trying to make a very, very cost efficient in terms of its operations, while it's trying to strategically position itself as a convenient and low cost airline today. And Ali just mentioned that another one who was trying to imitate the same thing, Continental Airlines. Continental Airlines came up with the new line for its flight services, which was called Continental Lite, L-I-T-E, which failed very fast, very quick, and very badly, because what Continental Airlines tried to do was to use their own planes, have the same services that they had in normal continental flights at the Lite, basically use the same air flight attendants and pilots across all of their different flight options. And they didn't necessarily like differentiate Continental Lite from the normal Continental enough to basically be saving money on the flights that they are running for Continental Lite compared to the flights that they're running for Continental. Basically, at the end of the day, the cost of running any and both of those flights was the same. And but they were, of course, selling the tickets for Continental Lite at a very low cost, because they wanted to position that as the low cost service for people who are looking for low cost air flight options. And since the plan did not fit their operational effectiveness or operational strategy, they failed. So when you're coming up with your strategic positioning, you have to take into account everything and anything that's going in your company, including how you know how to run the company in terms of its operations, to what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what other companies are doing in terms of opportunities and also threats to your company.
I have a question, something based off module 1. So the Burger King example, I think it said there were 5 guys on the marketing team for Burger King Japan, and they came up with the black bun thing. Like originally it wasn't the taste of the bun, but it also brought a lot of publicity that to Burger King, even here in the US, just because of its niche color, I guess. And eventually like they got rid of it, but wouldn't that be considered like a success because it did bring in publicity for a short-term period of time, or is that considered a failure in operational effectiveness?
It depends. So, I mean, it may also be a success for the Japanese market and a failure for the American market. It really depends because it depends on like, yes, there is this notion of any marketing is great marketing. And if Burger King is trending and on the headlines for a couple of weeks because of that bun, I think they served that bun for a couple of weeks in the US. They didn't really plan it for a permanent product in the US market, but I may be wrong. And in any case, it may be a good thing if it's not very temporary, right? If it's like a temporary 3-week hype about Burger King, people go check it out. And then at the end of 3 weeks, people like just choose McDonald's right away. It was a waste of time and energy. Yeah, like we got the profits from 3 weeks, but it didn't have any impact on the long-term sustainability of that customer base or sustainability of that hype and popularity in terms of being on trending and Twitter and on news, et cetera, et cetera. So if it can still like have an effect for long-term business and sales, I would say it is a success. And if it didn't, I would say it's a failure. You can also, before starting any marketing campaign, have some KPIs like I want this much sales, I want this much awareness, I want this much sales increase per shop in these different geographical areas. And if you don't meet it, then you can consider yourself, or not yourself, but the whole campaign a failure, or you can consider it like mediocre, or you can consider it very successful, depending on if you've met the KPIs or if you've superseded them or you haven't been able to meet them. So as a company, everyone usually comes up with KPIs first, and the kind of like tries to foresee what hype it will create, the marketing campaign, and what will the outcome be, and then evaluate the performance according to what they thought it was going to be. But I think in Japan, they still sell the buns, and they are an demanded product. I don't know if anyone knows more than I do, please share. So I think for that market, it seems to be a success.
Yeah, I was in Japan 3 years ago, and they're still selling them to this day.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly people are buying them in Japan, and clearly it was a good choice for that market because they're still selling them. So I think that's a success. I mean, also the consumer taste changes, right, throughout time. So maybe the next thing is green buns, because people love like pretending to be healthy. Maybe that's going to be the next big thing. I'm just making this up. It's probably not going to be the next big thing. But what I'm trying to say is that the tastes and the consumer demands are changing every day. So maybe they're going to substitute more healthy options into their menu. And that's going to be really good for different markets. It just always depends on the market conditions and consumer demands that are continuously changing too.
Surprised somebody didn't make like an avocado bun when it was in the hype, and still is, sort of.
It still is. Yeah, I don't frequent Burger King or McDonald's a lot, but I do know that local burger chains do actually like offer you avocado inside the burger. And then there is also the like lettuce bun that you can get from In-N-Out, or I don't know, like
Whole keto trend.
Yeah. So I mean, see, they're changing, and they're still like trying to offer new things. Maybe for McDonald's and Burger King, it's a little bit like more corporate, and they have so many stores to like manage at this point. Once they introduce anything new, they're not very agile, but the smaller chains are, or smaller local burger company or burger restaurants are. So we'll see. Porter talks about, so we talked about like differentiating strategy, Porter tries to tangify, like make it tangible, different ways that you can differentiate as a company. We know that price is one because you can engage in price wars, but he introduces 3 different ones. Do you guys remember what they are? They are on page 7. So we talked about Southwest. I'm just going to like talk about the things that I've marked on my paper. He gives Ikea as another example that has a great strategic positioning and does perform all its activities accordingly. So Ikea, the global furniture retailer based in Sweden, also has a clear strategic positioning. Ikea targets young furniture buyers who want style at low cost. What turns this marketing concept into a strategic positioning is the tailored set of activities that make it work. Like Southwest, Ikea has chosen to perform activities differently from its rivals. So they talk about their low cost, you being able to basically rent a truck from Ikea if you don't have a car, bring all the furniture to your home. If you cannot assemble it yourself, you can get them to come in and assemble it for you. But basically IKEA takes into account all of the needs of these young furniture buyers who may not want to spend hundreds of dollars at a high scale furniture shop. So I like that part on page 5 about activities matching your strategy, just like his Southwest example. And then on page 6, he starts about talking of different ways that you can differentiate as a company. And the first one is called variety-based positioning. Do you guys remember what the variety-based positioning is?
Isn't it where you just offer a variety of products and solutions to the consumer so that they don't feel they only have that one choice? You're giving them options, which is more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for, but it's more attractive, I guess you would say, when you have more options.
Yeah, you are totally right. So this positioning offers a variety of products. I like to call this actually like product-based positioning because as a business, one second, I'm gonna mute for a second. Someone is climbing up our stairs, so we're having a little trouble here. Beanie.
It's
Beanie.
Amazon. Guaranteed. Just let the dog loose, he'll go away.
Yeah. Girl, come here. Come here, get water here. Okay. So the first one, I like to call this product-based strategy. It just like resonates more with me because this is when a business tries to focus on the product. Like we have this product and you have to come here because we are experts in this product or product varieties. So like an example is Rubbermaid. When I say Rubbermaid, you think of plastic containers right away. Like it's plastic. They're experts in plastic. One of his example is Jiffy Lube. Like Jiffy Lube didn't at some point in their business life cycle decide to become like an auto store, any sort of like, you know, like big large auto store. They are still about lubrication services, changing your lube, and they are, you know, even the name says that they are experts in auto lubricants, or, you know, Jeep lubricants or bigger car lubricants. But the name gives it away. They're about lubricants. Similarly, I mean, do you guys have any examples? I can go on and on about different companies that choose this as their positioning strategy, but I'm sure you guys can think of some companies that either offer one product and one product only, or like a variety of products that are under the same category and say that they are experts in this.
iPhones, MacBooks.
Yeah. Apple, for sure.
Microsoft Word and their software.
Yeah, Microsoft Word is definitely their software, for sure. What else?
AutoZone.
AutoZone, yeah. Yeah, maybe they are including more than lubricants compared to Jiffy Lube, but definitely they're only auto accessories. If you need anything about your auto, you just go to AutoZone and they will have it, correct? It's a good one too.
Could it be like food-based, like Chick-fil-A, for example?
Yeah, Chick-fil-A would be one. Kentucky Fried Chicken would be one. I mean, McDonald's may be one. They have like more than just burgers, but they're about burgers too. So I think McDonald's would count as one too.
Louis Vuitton.
Louis Vuitton.
Would Band-Aid be considered one, since they do Band-Aids, but they do other medical equipment?
Yeah, Band-Aid, because they are all about like medical equipment, first aid stuff. Mostly Band-Aid. But yeah, that's a great example. Crocs.
Birkenstocks. Oh.
Ryan, did you say Crocs?
No, I said Birkenstocks.
Birkenstocks, yeah, very similar to Crocs. In the chat, I wrote Crocs. I also wrote Domino's, which is also another good example, or Pizza Hut. I mean, what does the name say? Pizza, right? So they are focusing on products for sure. Sarah says Starbucks, which is another good example. Yes, Tesla.
Would something like the NFL be some, because they only have American football?
Yeah, I think they could be, because they're focusing on American football as a big theme. Yeah. Haya says Nike, athletic wear. So we get the idea. This is when the company wants to know, basically when you think of the brand, you think of their product right away because they're so good at it. And you know that they're high quality. You know that you can go to that store and basically get anything related to that idea that you have in your mind. Porter calls this variety-based positioning. And he says it's based on the choice of product or service varieties rather than customer segments in terms of what the company decides to focus on. Variety-based positioning makes economic sense when a company can best produce particular products or services using distinctive sets of activities. So you as a company want to go this way when you know that you have a superior product, when you can be sure of your product quality, and you just want to provide that product for a long time. It's actually really hard for companies who go the variety-based positioning to extend to different product lines. So I don't know if I've given the example of Colgate frozen food yet to you. I usually watch it with this class during the first class, like just different product failures. So Colgate, which is a brand that we know for dental hygiene, right? Colgate is another example for variety-based positioning brand. Decided to extend its line to Colgate frozen foods, which did not fit because it was not related to dental hygiene, and they completely failed and they had to close that line immediately. So it's really hard for variety-based positioning companies to take on different products or take on products that are not really related to that product line that they are selling. So I mean, in that case, they should probably just push another brand and call it completely something else, or like try to stay in their own mainstream product instead of trying to branch out to different things.
I mean, isn't the way around that is just buying out other companies that are smaller, and then so basically being a subsidiary of them, or them being a subsidiary of you? That's the one way to, I guess, brand, like not use your specific brand, but still get revenue from other categories in the market.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I think it was you who gave the example of Amazon buying the Twitch. So that is a good example. Like Amazon is not trying to. You can still hear me. 1 second. Actually, give me a minute. I'm just going to put her in the bedroom and lock it so she doesn't come out. So just give me a minute.
I came a little late. Is this worksheet due today?
It's a worksheet that we're going over right now in class. I don't think it's an assignment.
Thank you.
Okay, I am back. Sorry about that. Yeah, so that's the first strategy Porter offers in terms of what business can do to differentiate from others. What's the second one?
Is it the needs-based positioning?
It is the needs-based positioning. It's on the next page. And he talks about what that is about. Does anyone want to tell us what needs-based positioning is about?
Isn't that just like serving the needs of like all the customers and just targeting the segments?
Mm-hmm. So in this positioning strategy, you try to pick a certain segment of customers. You don't try to like, you cannot potentially try to meet the needs of everyone and anybody in the world. So you focus on one specific customer segment and try to build your business around their needs. Do you guys have any examples? So what we talked about previously during this lecture, Southwest Airlines, that's an example of trying to meet the needs of the customers or the customer segment that they choose, because they're trying to go for the customers who are not willing to pay the full price of a flight, who are cost conscious, who are maybe not able to afford the full price of the flights, but who are also willing to drop some of the very high quality services that would come with your flight, such as like in-flight meal and free headphones and free movies and this and that. So they are going for satisfying the needs of their customer segment that they chose, and that's only, right? And Porter talks about Ikea. Ikea is another great example because they are serving the young furniture buyers who are not willing to pay the high prices that come in upscale furniture stores. And he talks about what kind of activities that go along with Ikea's offering of furniture, such as make it at home. You can rent a truck from them to take your furniture from Ikea to your home. You can get them to make your furniture at a extra cost from Ikea. Yeah, so the activities that go along with their pricing and their strategy just supports their efforts to appeal to the needs of the customer segment that they are trying to make this brand for.
Sorry. I was going to say another example. Wouldn't it be something like Beaumont Healthcare? They're a private hospital that also commercializes. But I know we have public healthcare, but they're going against, I guess, public healthcare, saying that it's better with private hospitals, and then they're providing the basic human need of human health, I guess.
Yeah, I have not heard of them, but it would be. What's the name again?
It's Beaumont Hospitals.
Beaumont, like B-O-M-A-T?
B-A-U-M-O-N-T.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check them out. It would be, though, because they're going for a specific customer segment. Thank you for the example. Karen says banks, people can have different bank accounts. I mean, there's also specific banks, right? There's purely online banks right now. They are going for the young and upcoming who don't need to go to a branch type of a customer segment. So a better example than just, yeah, Venmo. Venmo would be a great example in terms of who they're appealing to. I mean, also Cash App. Venmo and Cash App have actually different segments that they're appealing to. Maybe PayPal, that's a whole different customer segment as well. Do you guys have any other examples?
Would Little Caesars Hot and Ready be an example of that when they did that?
Why do you think it is an example? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Because I guess prior to like the Hot and Ready concept, you pretty much had to wait maybe 20, 30 minutes for pizza. And I guess people didn't like the wait time. So then later, Little Caesars developed the Hot and Ready. Once you wanted your pizza, you can just get the pizza.
Yep, they're appealing for maybe busy professionals or people for some reason or another are not willing to wait for the pizza wait times. So they take fast food to a faster level, which is definitely trying to serve customer needs. I think it is. Thank you, Jeanette. Other examples? Yeah, Zelle is coming too, Ryan says, and Zelle is probably appealing to a customer segment that is more the traditional banking people, because Zelle basically went to the way of trying to take all the banks as their partners, first of all. And yeah, Zelle just is appealing to a completely different customer segment as well. Other examples?
Subway. I don't know. I don't know who owns it, but I feel like, or like a train track company that's very few and far in between.
And why do you think Subway is the needs-based?
Oh, well, in like populated areas like Detroit, or not Detroit, New York, you can't really afford to have a car because of parking, and people need different forms of transportation. So I guess the taxi and Uber also count as the same lines as subways.
So you're saying Subway transportation system is appealing to a certain customer and their needs. Yeah, that's totally right. I first thought of the sandwich shop when you said Subway, so.
Oh no.
So I'm glad I asked you to clarify that. Karen says gyms, and I totally agree with you, Karen. And I wouldn't put gyms in one bucket because there's just so many different gyms that appeal to so many different customer segments. Like there is only Olympic lifting gyms that are popping up right now. I don't know if you're aware. There's only Pilates gyms, or there is only yoga gyms. So their gyms are trying to appeal to very specific segments because people are very particular about their workouts. Or like with the COVID, there's a bunch of brands that are doing online workout things. Peloton, for example. I think Peloton is another example for a company that is going for needs-based positioning. And maybe mostly right now, the needs of their customers are very specific needs that are under COVID circumstances, like working out from home and doing this and who are doing that. But Peloton emerged from the customer base who wanted to work from home and bike from home even before COVID times. So they have had this customer specific strategy for a long time now.
It's interesting to see brands developing like their strategies based off of the times. Like with the gyms and Peloton and things like that, they developed with COVID, and then even like way back, like in Netflix's timeline, they started off with their CDs and then slowly started developing their online platform and like weaning off of the CDs slowly into like completely online. And then with Chase, now they have Quick Pay, like Zelle, to appeal to like the younger generation. They're still not like getting the younger generation completely but like it's introducing that idea. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because Ryan, you said it really, really well. Consumers are changing. Consumers' needs are changing. What consumers are comfortable with is changing. I mean, if you think of like 20 years ago, our parents were not really comfortable with doing online credit card transactions. I remember my mom being like, don't give my credit card information to anything and everything. And in the meantime, they're swiping their cards at stores and it's like the same thing. But the consumer's perceptions of what is safe and what is not is changing. Technology is changing. I mean, 20 years ago, today, Netflix may not have been able to put so much content into discs and then make it available everywhere in the country using the internet.
Wouldn't Zoom and Skype be considered a need based off in the business world? Because I remember before, it was before my time, but I remember you had to like install your camera and then use your specific computer software, or like the company had to use their software to have a video conference. And then Skype and Zoom came along and they just started using that instead.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example, Castria, because Zoom, like basically day to day when COVID hit, was changing features and like updating its store, because I think they were realizing that, and they actually put a public statement, I think, saying that they were not ready, like as much as they would have liked to when COVID hit and everyone started using them. They couldn't like really hold that many users at a basically strike. So they were updating their product day to day. As an instructor who was using Zoom, I was like literally having a hard time finding the same buttons or trying to figure out what is what now. They did a really good job, and they did edit their product along with the needs of the users, because the users didn't actually know their needs either. Like I didn't know what I needed to use when I'm teaching anything online, because I wasn't teaching anything online, and the people that were teaching things online were only just posting YouTube videos, instructional videos, not really holding calls, because that was the online class idea. But with Zoom, everything had to become online class and interactive. And I'm sure they were holding conversations with their customers every day, just like trying to figure out what else they needed, what they didn't need in terms of product features. So that's a great example. Maddie, you're raising your hand.
I am. So I just wanted to mention, like, I work in corporate IT and everything. So we were kind of at the forefront of setting up this work from home for to the extent for an entire global company and everything.
Yeah.
And a big issue with Zoom in terms of like our clients wanting to use it and us considering Zoom or Teams or continuing with Skype on its last leg was the security issues. Is that Zoom prior to COVID and everything didn't have the security policies set up as things like Skype for Business or Teams did. So we finally were able to permit it eventually, but it did take a second for Zoom to up their security to the points where companies felt comfortable using it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that example. So yeah, I mean, that's nobody expected it, but that's a example of Zoom trying to meet the needs of the consumers who were corporate giants at this point. And needed some security credentials, which Zoom probably never thought of initially. But yeah, we saw a lot of, during COVID times especially, a lot of like tweaking and editing things in terms of customer needs, because customer needs changed basically in a week. And companies had to change to meet those. These are great examples. Other examples that you guys want to talk about? Well, let's talk about the last strategy that Porter suggests, which is a little bit of a tricky one. But if anyone wants to have a stab at it, do you want to talk about the third positioning strategy that Porter suggests that businesses can take up on? It's called access-based positioning. What is access-based positioning?
I mean, isn't it exactly what it sounds like? It's just basically going into an area that doesn't have access to something, and that alone is your marketing. Kind of like how Elon Musk and his Starlink is working. He's launching all these satellites into space so that everyone all over the world can have internet, and that alone is its marketing. He doesn't need to advertise it. It's already being talked about everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good example, Ali. So basically, the third positioning type is positioning your brand for a specific region or a geographic. It can be a geographical region. It can be a region in the internet. It can be a cyber region. But let's give some examples that are geographic regions so that we understand the concept a little bit better. He talks about Carmike Cinemas, which apparently go and build movie theaters in middle sized towns, not very small, not very big, because it has to be for populations under 200,000. So maybe actually more on the small side, because the generic cinema companies didn't want to build a movie theater in these smaller towns because their basically perceived profits were not good enough for them to legitimize the cost of building an IMAX or any generic movie theater that you can think of. Because basically the maximum number of people that can watch your movie at a season is, or like per movie is 200,000 people, and not all of them are going to show up and watch your movie. So their cost benefit analysis does not legitimize them building movie theaters in these smaller towns. However, Carmike Cinemas go into these towns and build movie theaters with, of course, the fitting activities that come along with being able to build cinemas for these smaller towns. And on the next page, he keeps on talking about what are these like fitting activities that go along with being able to build these movie theaters. Is that they're all standardized, they're all low-cost theater buildings. They have fewer screens, they're less sophisticated in terms of their projection technology. And Carmike reaps advantages from centralized purchasing, lower rent, and payroll costs. They also have a rock bottom corporate overhead of 2%. The industry average is 5%, so they spend less costs in terms of their managerial staffing. And it operating in small communities also allows Carmike to practice a highly personal form of marketing in which the theater manager knows patrons and promotes attendance through personal contacts. So apparently they're very successful in this regionally very specific market. It's not specific customers in this case or a specific product. It is a specific region or specific type of location that they are masters of, right? And they're only going to build theaters in those towns that qualify. And they're going to build it this one way that's very standardized. So can you guys think of other examples for position-based strategy?
Telephone companies, like not only 5G, but just in general having service in some remote locations.
Mm-hmm. And also even like the places that they decide to give fiber internet access. I would say that that is also a location-based strategy in terms of internet provider companies. Other examples? I can give you an example of
like a fast food.
Yeah.
Putting their building in, somewhere where the market demands the product.
Like what? Do you have an example?
Like a subs shop next to like an office building or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is access-based positioning.
That's just like all the fast food places that also are inside of gas stations.
Yeah, gas stations. Even like in Little Caesars Arena, there is some specific restaurants that picked to be inside there too, right? So basically stadiums, gas stations, good examples.
I had a question that's sort of like not off topic, but so can the government be something that provide, like, I know they're supposed to provide the basic needs, but can they also be considered part of the market, or are they just doing like a public service essentially?
What are you thinking? I mean, it can be both, but it depends on what service you're talking about.
Like providing roads to remote locations, and then like I guess the military could be one, providing the basic needs for self-defense against one's nation, but other things like public transportation, everything they do along those lines, or are they just considered as they're supposed to do that and they're not part of the market?
I think they are part of the market. I mean, there isn't really private providers that provide roads, but for example, there is private providers that are providing insurance or like schools. So where the public schools are and who they're going to serve may be regionally determined. Roads also, they may be regionally determined. So, I mean, sometimes they are customer needs based. Sometimes they are region based. So I think both types of positioning strategies play into government's decisions. So it's hard to know which one is happening when, but it could be an example for sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Sometimes, for example, if the government is prioritizing the construction of the roads around an airport, that can be regional developments, because I mean, basically at the end of the day, they're trying to impress the people that come in and visit the town. And it's not necessarily for the needs of the community that they are hopefully serving, but I mean, ultimately, like this other way, they're serving the needs of the community by impressing tourists and enabling income to flow into the town. But the primary aim of the development of the roads around the airports is mostly to regionally improve the area so that tourists are impressed and they want to come more, etc. So that could be an example.
I guess along the lines where I was going for is like everything the government provides, there's always a private market for it. Like I think someone tries to find a counter to the government. Like for example, if you look at the military, there's also private mercenaries that you can hire. If you look at any construction company that can make roads, a private entity can also do that. Same thing in the Beaumont. They can also compete with public hospitals, and like you said, private schools can compete with public schools. So that's what I was trying to get. Like, are they part of the market because everybody tries to compete with the government at the same time as competing with other competitors?
They are. Yeah, they are. They would count in all of the scenarios that you just mentioned. They would be considered as a player in the market. Other examples? I was going to give the examples of the I actually don't know any examples for the US, but you guys may have seen some. Like in Europe, if you have very large stores like Meijer is or Kroger is, then usually like pop-ups of the shops, but in smaller scale, appear near subway stations or like very, very dense areas of the city. And they are, for example, Carrefour is an example of a European supermarket that's really large and has like supermarkets all over different countries, including Turkey, but it's a French brand. They have Carrefour Plus, which is a very small scale, only like your urgent needs kinds of products being carried in that small store type of a store. And they are all access based. They're all for that specific region. Like the surface area of the store is very small, and the number of options that you have in terms of food or different brands is very limited, like 2 or 3 brands in each store. And you go in just for your basic needs. Here, I just don't know any names. Is there like a Meijer Plus or Mini Targets? Mini Targets is an example for stores that are popping up that are access based because they are mini, because maybe the cost of renting a space in that area is very high, so they're trying to compensate for that. Which probably means that they are in a very residential area, but people also need groceries, so they want to go get them. So Mini Targets are also employing access-based positioning. I think I heard that some other brands are going to start doing that as well. And in my other class last semester, people were complaining about how Detroit doesn't have enough mini supermarkets, and it should. So I'm always reminded of that small supermarket idea when I hear access-based positioning.
Wouldn't Walmart be considered one because they have Walmart and they have Walmart Supercenter, which is a completely different store. Well, it's a bigger grand scale store than actual Walmart.
Yeah, I think Walmart is trying to attract consumers through like lower prices. So I think they have a customer-based strategy as a whole, but I think in terms of where they're going to build the superstore versus the normal store, there is a big component of access-based strategies that take into play, come into play when they're trying to decide where is going to be the larger store and where is going to be the smaller store. So yes, for sure. But they also do customer needs based strategy. So just like some companies also like do hybrid strategies. Like they take a little bit of that and a little bit of this and combine them together. I don't know if you guys have any examples right now, but some of them do like product and customer needs. So maybe like actually I can give
Fast food chain is an example. If you look at McDonald's in, say, Japan and McDonald's here, they go off the needs of the taste buds in that location, or vice versa, anywhere in the world. Their menus are completely different from ours. Like KFC they don't have like the gravy bowl we have here. KFC across Europe, they don't have that. They have like seafood based stuff in Thailand and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like a couple other flavors in India that I actually saw and tasted. Yeah, totally. So that's a really good example. Yeah, fast food restaurants that have different menus for different cultures, who are also doing product-based strategy. Yeah. Okay, so Subway in Canada serves tandoori chicken. So another example is Subway, I guess. So that's a good thing to know as well. Yeah, so there's 3 different strategies proposed by Porter that a brand can employ instead of or along with engaging in price wars with its competitors. A lot of brands employ these and try to differentiate themselves from the competitors in the market using these, just like in the examples that we all shared a moment ago. So can you discuss the fit idea that Porter talks about in the paper? I've like said fit so many times too, just to like basically underline what I was meaning in the examples throughout the lecture. Basically, at the end of the day, fit is when a company decides to go a specific strategic positioning way and then employs activities and warranty options and different services and customer service line, etc., for the customers that are in line with its strategic positioning. So for example, just from the very previous example, Southwest Airlines was doing the fit really well because it was employing all activities that would go hand in hand with their strategic positioning. However, Continental Airlines Light did not really do a good job in the fit of their activities and their strategic positioning. So fit is basically activities that are performed by the company go hand in hand with their strategic positioning that they are trying to employ.
So essentially, it's programs that reinforce the foundation of the company for sustainability in the long run, instead of competing with its foundation.
Yeah, foundation or core competence, we call it in marketing, or strategic positioning. So whatever they're going for. If they're going for the lowest price in the market, they have to do all the activities to have the lowest costs themselves, or else the company is going to fail. If they're going for superior product like Jiffy Lube, if they provide really shitty lube services to the customers, pardon my French, then nobody is gonna go back to that store while they're trying to promote this product. They're not providing good products to their customers. So in that case, it's just going to be not a good fit. Does that make sense?
Yes, like Amazon, before this, when President Trump was in, he tried to up the cost of Amazon using the United States Postal Service. So to keep their costs down, they just made their own postal service, essentially.
Exactly. What do you guys think Amazon is employing in terms of its main strategy?
Fast delivery.
Fast delivery. Is it the product-based strategy or needs-based strategy or region-based strategy?
More along needs of convenience to the customer that doesn't want to go shopping or doesn't have the time to go shopping.
Yep. I would agree. I think they are needs-based as well. And along with the needs-based strategy, they have a really good customer service, return service. What else? Do you see? Like these are all fits into their main strategy base, providing customers anyone that they can talk to anytime that they want. A return policy that's very, very flexible and convenient for the customer.
That, and they offer like a loyalty rewards for their if you're a Prime membership, you get delivery faster, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Amazon Prime also serves into that needs-based, or their partnership with Whole Foods, where they can just deliver your groceries to your door right now. So that's another fit into the needs-based positioning strategy that they're going with. So yeah, I think that's a good discussion about Porter's proposed strategies for differentiation as a company. These things that we talked about go very much hand in hand with all of the lecture 1 and 2 material that you're watching or you watched already. So I wanted to talk about all of this. And I want to lastly ask you guys a question about 7 P's of marketing. So we'll cover 4 P's of marketing. And I think I assigned reading to you about 7 P's of marketing, which is a part of lecture 1. So the 4 P's of marketing is product, price, place, and promotion. We're going to talk about these further in the class. I still wanted you guys to like read a little bit about them because a lot of the things that we're talking about, for example, Porter's strategy decisions, do have reflections for the company in terms of its branding. And its branding is going to consist of, 1, what product they want to sell, in what packaging, in what color packaging, with what logo. Secondly, you have to decide on the price of the product as the marketing department or the marketing manager of the product, and that will be determined by what your competitors are selling their products for, what kind of bundles they are doing. Like in the Netflix example, we talked about some other services bundling up with different providers to lower the burden on the consumer. Is Netflix ever going to do that? That is in the hands of Netflix's marketing managers. So looking at all of the strategic priorities that they have, of what the competitors are doing, they have to decide on a price, which they regularly do, and alter the price for us as we observe it as the consumers. Promotion materials. Promotion is basically anything from advertising to PR campaigns. The idea that we talked about, Burger King, is Black Burger Bun worth bringing so much hype for or not? These are all different decisions that marketing managers have to make and pull the strings for. And lastly, the place, which is through what channels we're going to sell our product. Is it going to be available online? Is it going to be available through our website? Or are we going to use intermediaries such as Amazon or eBay to sell our products through? Are we going to put it in Costco, or are we going to put it in Meijer? What kind of consumers are we targeting here? Types of decisions are things that marketing managers make decisions about. Similarly, for place under the 4th P, what ad channels do we have to put our ads through, such as like, are we going to be on TikTok or Snapchat, or are we going to be only on TV in terms of our ads? There was a good question from Roel about Peloton's commercial. Like, the question was, why do you think they got so much hate for the commercial that Peloton had? I have a good answer for it, but if anyone wants to answer it, I'm happy to listen to your attempt of why was there some sort of an unfit for Peloton that everyone got some rage for the brand. Is it because of the place that they were putting the ad through, or is it because of the ad's content? These are things that we will be able to observe and look at in terms of marketing managers. Oh, Japan now has meat buns, Ryan is saying. I just saw it online. So yeah, that's a product decision that Japan, Burger King, I suppose, came up with in terms of coming up with protein-focused meat buns.
I'll take a swing at it. I don't know if it's gonna, if I'm in the right area, but I believe the most Peloton commercials I've seen, including that one, a lot of people have a problem with it is because people that are using those bikes, they want to stay fit, or they're completely ignoring the other market or the other people that are not fit already. And most, like majority, I don't think they have one commercial where they don't have somebody that's already fit on the bike. So that's the problem that people, I guess, perceived, is because most people that want that bike are trying to get in shape, and then they're only marketing towards people that are already in shape.
Yeah, it can be. It can be. That's a really good point. I mean, if you guys want, at the very end, we can watch the little Peloton video all together and try to see what the problem may be. My proposal is that the customer segment that Peloton is going for is very woke, like they are aware of and promoting all sorts of rights of people being any weight that they want, people being from any political party that they want, people being whatever they are. So they are, I think, very liberal in terms of their political and self choices. And I think they got angry because the husband was buying the bike for the wife, who was already fit. So I think there were some cultural problems for these woke customers that Peloton has, in terms of like, oh, like really the husband has to buy the, like, it's kind of like buying a weight loss machine for your wife, kind of an idea. I think that got the woman a little bit upset, because they were like, really, like, you think I'm fat? Like, is that a signal? Like, kind of, I don't know. Do you guys get the point? It's just kind of like,
Yeah, that's exactly what my peers said when that Peloton video came out. They're like, oh, why is it the husband buying the wife, you know, a workout machine? What is he trying to say? This is that, misogyny, all this stuff. I'm like, guys, it's a bike commercial. Like, you know what I mean? It's like buying a treadmill if you're already fit. You don't want to run outside sometimes.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think the biggest mistake in the commercial was the husband buying the bike. I think the lady should have bought it herself. And that would have fixed a lot of problems. And then also another part was that she was already fit, and then like we see this like growth of the lady becoming more fit, like not really visually, but she feels more fit or whatever. So that is also conveyed a little bit less, that's conveyed a little bit vaguely. Like I can perceive it because I maybe work out that like she maybe like bikes it faster and is not having some breathing difficulties while she's biking faster, etc. But like it was as if it was put as if like she was going through a weight transformation, and it wasn't put through as more like a self-challenging transformation. Like she challenged herself and she did better. And like she didn't even sign up for this on her own to like basically break her own record. She was signed up by the husband. So it was kind of contradictory and vague what was going on. But yeah, at the very end of the class, we can like totally watch it and see the ad if you guys want to look at it together.
The thing that that kind of, like, I get the whole Vogue thing, but the thing that it's kind of controversial is because there's also a lot of people that are all old school, and there's a lot of people on the Vogue side that are also old school but contradict themselves when they say, well, the guy should pick up the first tab on the date, and then they get mad when he buys the bike. So it's like there's two sides to every argument, and then I feel like being Vogue, you also contradict yourself in some ways, like chivalry, for example. People say chivalry is gone, but then as soon as you open a door, they're going to be like, well, I can open my own door. So there's two sides of every coin.
Yeah, well, that discussion can go on forever. It's like a whole, what is feminism? We can talk about what is supporting women and what's not really supporting women. It can go a long way, and I'm happy to discuss if anyone is interested. But yeah, surely that may be a self-contradiction that they felt in themselves too. I'm not 100% sure, but maybe like they're okay doing it themselves, but they don't want to see an ad that features that. Maybe she asked for the Peloton. We don't know the context. So they were just not comfortable with the context that they were given. Let's just say that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is conflicting ideas that they hold as consumers or as individuals. But what we care about most as the marketing managers is basically how they react to our ad, and that will be consistent. And I mean, they may be really, really mad at us for no reason, but we should really like try to
walk the fine line.
Communication. Sorry?
No, I was going to say walk the fine line of trying to stay neutral, not piss off either side.
Yeah, or like, yeah, or like basically pick a safe side that is aligned with our brand. So I think the last class we're going to talk about like what brands supported the Black Lives Matter movement, which didn't. Was it necessary for the brands that supported Black Lives Matter movement to support the Black Lives Matter movement, or did they just do it because of their individual choices as like the owner of the company or owner of the brand? And what did that signal about the brand to the consumer, to its consumer or its potential consumers? We're going to talk about these things. Yeah, sometimes it just doesn't go the way that you expect that it will go. And as a brand, it can be sometimes hard to pick a side or publish like public note right away. Maybe you guys are aware of this. The Founders Brewing Company had a racism issue in its Detroit restaurant, which is basically right next to the business school. And it stayed shut for a while because they just could not make a statement to the public about what went on, what happened, and like why was the worker pissed, etc. And it's still like vague what happened there, but I personally like vouch that if the company was more clear in terms of what happened and in terms of the fact that they don't support racism, it would have been more of a clear communication from the company's side to the consumers. But instead, they chose to stay silent, which was very ambiguous in terms of what side they were on, which I think was a bad choice. But in some other cases, we will be able to see or like observe going forward, the company making a statement also kind of like backlashes in their cases sometimes. So it's a fine line, but we as individuals face it every day, and so does brands, especially like nowadays where there's so many different
views,
discussions, yeah, and arguments, and sides.
As like a marketing manager, is there any like do you take it effect like say you're in a position where you like nowadays, like you said, it's almost impossible not to piss off one group. Wouldn't that come into cost analysis? Like, okay, let's not piss off the smallest, or let's not piss off the biggest group, and then maybe we can afford to piss off the small groups for more profits.
Yeah, or like you have to really know your customer, who they are. So like you really need to know what their feelings are towards certain things, what political party they support, are they politically charged or not? Like or like, you know, percentages in your customer group who belong to these different segments. And sometimes as the brand, it's not necessary for you to make a statement, but sometimes it is. So yeah, I think and we'll talk about this a lot. I think the best thing that the brand can do is to know their customers, be in touch with them on a daily basis. A lot of brands actually hire marketing researchers who will go into the houses of their users and like live with them for a while. It's called ethnographic research. Of course, like people who are being ethnographically observed get paid for it, and they get compensated for participating in focus groups or, you know, the observation at home, etc. But the company, any brand, has to do it and has to be aware of who is their biggest supporters and fans.
Doesn't that also like contradict like what marketing is all about, is to broaden your brand to get different groups of people also on board?
Not necessarily, not necessarily. It may have been the marketing ideal of the 90s to basically sell to everybody, just like McDonald's is now or Burger King is. But I think the brands of today are trying to be a love brand of a specific group. So they are really trying to like come up with a fan base and appeal to that group, just because like naturally, because there's so many brands out there, like makeup brands and like lipstick brand. I don't know, there's so many brands. You have to really pick your fan base and go for them and make products for them and feature them in your marketing ads. Employ Instagram bloggers and like Snapchat like bloggers that are basically very similar to your fan base or do appeal to your fan base. So you have to really focus, and the maximum number of customer segments that you can serve like is getting lower and lower every day because of the number of brands out there.
Sort of like kind of like Ali hit it on the head in the beginning, with the saturation of the market. It's not like in the beginning of technology, now technology, everybody's in the market. So you kind of like have to pick your niche customer base and then go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
sorry.
You will watch the Mac versus Apple. I mean, everyone is aware of those ads, but I posted the ads. Maybe I'll post them in towards the last lectures or something, but just to recall the Apple versus Mac like ads, you see even like Microsoft and Apple have to have their own like type of people and persona, and they cannot really appeal to everybody out there. Even they have to pick and choose their own area and just go for that, because like there is really no way of gaining the whole market right now if you're not a very rare product that has never been seen on the planet. Maddie?
So it's funny that you mentioned makeup, because I think that really is like the perfect example of kind of diversifying and finding your niche market and everything, because basically since it got so big on YouTube in the early 2010s and everything, there were so many social media makeup brands and everything that came up from that point. And now you can really see that they have kind of figured out who they're marketing towards. Like very certain brands have very specific marketing. Like, you know, the top one that kind of comes to my head is like Glossier, where they have their very like natural makeup brand, where there's other companies like like Anastasia Beverly Hills and everything, where they are more marketing towards glam makeup artist type people. So I really like that. It makes a lot of sense for them. That's like the perfect example.
Yeah, and then they will like join forces with like certain celebrities. So MAC joins forces with like more bold makeup, more bold character types of celebrities. And then like more natural ones will go hand in hand with like more natural makeup style celebrities. And some of them like will just basically pick their customer base. There's like Balsamic Cosmetics, which basically do like vintage cosmetics right now, which is all about like reproducing the colors of 20s and 30s. And their customer base is like people who like to wear vintage and retro. So yeah, like those people will Balsamic will never appeal to, which is the vintage cosmetic line, will never appeal to like people that, I don't know, like one of the ones that you mentioned that are neutral are appealing to, or who MAC appeals to. So they have to pick and choose their war zones, basically, which is their customer segments and targets. Yeah, thank you for that example. Ali?
I actually had a pretty good example for what would be considered like a controversial marketing technique. So I remember, I don't know how long ago it was, maybe a month or two, Budweiser had a new truck line, or they just had their delivery trucks painted in a way that shows that they support the police. You know, they're like, hey, our boys in blue, we support them. And they got some pretty bad backlash from people who are part of like the ACAB movement or the defund police. But I do believe that Bud Light did take that into account and be like, well, who's our bigger customer base? Those who support the police or those who oppose them? So they chose their side and they got the backlash, but at the same time, they're also showing support where most of their customer base is, you know, that's where their sentiment is, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that's a great example. And like people who did complain about it may not even be Bud Light drinkers. So that's a great example. Castriot?
I have a kind of like a counter example to his. NFL like originally said no kneeling, and they like banned it from the sport with the whole Colin Kaepernick situation, and then they reverted their position after the whole backlash. So they chose a side and then they unchose that side. So it's kind of back and forth.
Yeah, for them, clearly the other side was important enough, and the backlash was like very, very big and not tolerable for some reason or another. So yeah, that's a good example too. Thank you. Yeah, so for this class, let me just ask you, along with the 4 P's of marketing, marketers of today have come with people, process, and physical evidence, 3 more P's that the marketing managers should consider and make decisions about. People is basically the community. It's the community outside of your customer, all of the people as a whole. So marketing managers say that you want to take everybody in account, including the public or your staff or your salespeople, customer service teams, and anyone involved with your processes of marketing and distributing your product. The 6th P of marketing, they're saying, is process, and this is the delivery of your product or service to a customer. Maps need to make 2 outline functions, activities, tasks, and processes. Doing so keeps your processes functioning smoothly and efficiently. You have to check your processes frequently and guarantee that they're simple and they are generating revenue for you. You have to improve and alter your process when necessary, if so. And then the last P, the 7th P they come up with is physical evidence. Your consumer should always receive something physical to validate their purchase. Consider how braces give you straight teeth, hairdressers give you a new look, and receipts are a proof of purchase. People like to receive something that evokes their senses to confirm that they have gotten a product or service, even if it's just the receipt. This tangible item validates the experience of purchasing and fosters a sense of value from that purchase. So my question for you is that how much or to what extent do you agree with the three new P's of marketing? Do you guys think that these are important or not, and why?
I mean, I think the physical evidence is probably the most important one, because if you buy something and you don't get an email or something, and then you just see your account go down, your bank account is like, well, how do I know this is actually true and they didn't just take my money? So I don't know. I feel like they're all pretty, like, not as important as the first four, but they have a lot to do with it as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like this set of, 7 P's, right? 8, and but it seems like you could always find another one, right? Like we've talked about before, you could always bring another one into the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But people's pretty interesting to think about. You want your company or your employees to be effective, and then also well received by the customer. I thought that was really interesting to think about.
Yeah. Well, I want to add something to your point, Daniel, because I gave the Founders Brewing Company example, for instance. The hypothesis in that scenario is that they hired a not very racially friendly manager, and the manager just happened to like mistreat one of the workers in the space. Just stemming from that, I think who you hire and whether they share the same values with you as a brand, it's very important, because like if there is a mistreatment of your employees, if there is there's a lot of mistreatment of even students in school that are coming out. There has been a case close by from EMU recently. So who you hire and what their values are and how they behave becomes an important thing as for your brand, because the world is very transparent right now, and anything that may happen that does contradict with your brand is very communicatable, and customers can react to that instance very, very immediately. And that can then damage your brand or put you in situations where you have to release public statements around your brand, how you did not support that case, and how you fired that employee, etc. But just like putting a little bit more extra effort into hiring people that will be in line with who you are as the brand would just help you a little bit more in the way in terms of not having to go through hard times.
I mean, not only from a PR standpoint, but that can also affect the internal cohesion and efficiency of your company if there's disgruntled employees based off the manager or one other employee and vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because it's like not that easy to fire people, but it's easier to take a little bit more time in terms of getting to know who you're going to hire, and basically make your hiring efforts a little bit more detailed and conscientious for the company. And then I want to say something else about the process. It's actually very much in line with my research, is that sometimes even if you're not doing anything wrong as the brand, if you are supplying or if you're getting supplies from a factory that uses harmful chemicals on the workers or uses child labor, uses like any unethical business practice, then your brand may be affected as well. You may have seen boycott calls for different makeup brands online who use animal testing. A lot of different groups who do not want animals to be harmed do call for consumers boycotting cosmetics companies that use animal testing irresponsibly. Some actually stopped doing animal testing within US territory, but continue to do animal testing abroad, and that counts as no animal testing, it's okay, etc. in terms of by some third-party labels or the government. There's a huge Google black hole that you can go through figuring out which brand is okay, which brand is not. There's a lot of blog posts about animal rights supporters out there. So just basically being conscious of who you are buying from, your raw materials or your packaging materials or your ingredients and how they come to your doorstep as a company is becoming more and more important today, because consumers are becoming more sensitive about how things are sourced. Hence is why consumers are preferring local products from like about which they can see where the origin of the product is or go visit. There's a big local movement that is happening nowadays because of these like shady process maps that were employed by some global giants or even some local companies that put consumers' hopes down. So being aware of who your suppliers are and how the sourced materials are coming to your doorstep, basically your process, is also another thing that is important for the brand managers to keep in mind and keep an eye on. Yeah, any other comments about anything that we discussed today?
Professor, I just wanted to say, I put in the chat, but I don't think that worksheet that you had us following was actually published.
Oh.
So if it was on modules all the way at the end, it's not on mine. I don't know whether I'm doing something wrong or.
Let me just double check. Maybe I'm sorry. I have to like press this green button here. Okay, now it is there. So you can access it right now. Anything else I put on there will be available. It's just I created this this morning and did not publish it. You should be able to see it now though. And the recording of the lecture I'm going to share under the modules, which is going to be right here very soon too. So if you want to like go back to any of the points that we raised all together, you can do so. But thanks for pointing that out. Anything else?
Yes, so just to clarify, this worksheet is due or isn't due since we went over class?
No, it's not due. Worksheets are not going to be due. These are just basically some resources that I can follow when we're creating discussion. Like I just want to make sure I don't forget to make those points throughout our discussion, and for you to follow throughout the discussion, or you can take some notes using them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just basically guidance for the Zoom calls. You can also just look at the worksheet and kind of like recall what we discussed in class. Maybe it's just basically a little class schedule about what we're going to discuss. And during the Zoom calls, we're just going to discuss on the content that you have watched and read. I'm not going to go through specific class material. I kind of do just by reviewing things and trying to make things clear and give examples about things. But the main lecture material is what you see here in terms of what I post every Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. All right, that's all I have to say today. And thank you so much for participating in the discussion, giving great examples about different brands and how they behave. This is all for today. I'll see you I believe next week. I'm gonna post a little reminder on Tuesday morning about that. And I think next week, if you have any questions about the midterm that's coming up after next week, not next week, but the week after, bring those questions to the lecture next week so we can discuss and clarify anything that you need to know. But yeah, I'll see you next week. In the meantime, keep watching the lecture videos.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. You all have a good